So I want you to think about the absolute worst boss you've ever had.
Oh, we've all had at least one.
Right. Just get their face clearly in your mind right now. Think about how they operated on a daily basis.
It's usually not a great memory.
No, definitely not. But here is the thing. Now realize this. They probably had total authority, right? But absolutely zero leadership.
Yeah, that's such a crucial distinction.
Because usually when we think about leadership, there's this expectation of something, I don't know, highly visible.
Like a status symbol.
Exactly. You see the CEO title on the door or the blue check mark on a social media profile, the massive corner office.
The reserved parking spot.
Yes. And society just points and says, there it is. That's the leader.
Right, because we equate the position with the person.
But today, we're diving into some really fascinating material. It's from the Victory with Ashmaster Knowledge Base, specifically their Foundation series, Episode 11.
And it is a game changer for how you view influence.
It really is. So our mission for this deep dive today is to just completely dismantle this idea that leadership requires a title or a podium or a massive following.
Because the truth is, the title on your door is completely meaningless if you haven't mastered the one person you actually control.
Which is yourself.
Exactly. What's fascinating about this Foundation series material is how it completely severs leadership from authority.
It just draws a massive bright line right between the two.
It really does. I mean, you don't need a massive organization, you don't need millions in the bank, and you certainly don't need thousands of followers to be a leader.
Right.
The material argues that leadership begins the exact second you decide to take responsibility for your own life.
Which is such a massive paradigm shift because before we can even define what true leadership is, we kind of have to deprogram what society constantly tells us it is.
Oh, absolutely. We are deeply conditioned.
Yeah, to believe that being a leader means being the boss. Like, you give the orders, you control the room, you have to be the loudest, most dominant voice at the table.
Right, but that is merely the definition of authority, and authority without trust. It's completely empty.
Totally empty.
I mean, you can have a shiny title without inspiring a single person. You can control people's schedules without ever positively influencing their lives. We've all seen this.
Oh, absolutely. And the Victory with Ash framework gives this perfect, highly relatable scenario to highlight the difference.
The two managers story.
Yes. So imagine two managers. We'll call them Manager A and Manager B. And they're both leading a team through the exact same high-stakes, really difficult project.
Your pressure is on.
Right. Pressure is high. So Manager A relies entirely on authority. The moment the stress hits, they just start barking orders.
Choose this immediately.
Finish that by 5. Do not make any mistakes.
Yeah.
And, the team complies.
Because they have to.
Exactly. They follow the instructions because they want to keep their jobs. But their internal motivation is just completely on the floor.
Because you get compliance, but you do not get commitment. And if you look at it from a psychological standpoint, Manager A is operating purely on fear.
Which is so toxic.
It is.
Yeah.
When you manage by fear, you trigger the team's fight-or-flight response. Their cognitive load narrows down to just one goal. How do I avoid getting yelled at today?
Wow. Yeah, they aren't being creative at all.
Not at all. They aren't problem solving. They are literally just surviving.
Okay, so then you have Manager B. Same exact title, same level of authority as Manager A.
But a totally different approach.
Right. Manager B gathers the team and actually explains the challenge. They communicate the why behind the work.
They give context.
Yeah, they actually listen to the team's concerns. They assign responsibilities based on people's actual strengths rather than just, randomly offloading tasks.
And critically, they accept accountability if things go sideways.
Yes. Both have the exact same authority, but only Manager B has actual influence.
That's the key right there.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Go for it.
Because that sounds beautiful on a whiteboard, right? But in the real corporate world or in super high-stress environments, doesn't Manager A often get rewarded?
They often do, unfortunately.
I mean, sometimes you just need people to execute immediately. If you're a captain on a sinking ship, you don't have time to gather everyone for a feeling circle and explain the why of the lifeboats.
No, of course not.
You just shout orders, right?
Well, this raises a really important question from the source material about the difference between efficiency and effectiveness.
Okay.
On a sinking ship, sure, command and control is absolutely necessary, but how often are you actually on a sinking ship?
That's fair. Hopefully not that often.
Right. In long-term human endeavors, whether that's building a company or even raising a family, the mechanisms of leadership are totally different.
So Manager A might win the day, but lose the year.
Precisely.
Mm.
While Manager A is demanding immediate compliance, Manager B is building long-term capability.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Right.
What does building long-term capability actually look like mechanically?
Well, it looks like psychological safety. When Manager A finishes that high-stress project, the team is completely burned out.
They're exhausted.
They're resentful, and they're likely looking for other jobs. Manager A got the task done today, but they destroyed the machine that actually does the work.
Wow. That's a great way to put it.
But when Manager B finishes the project, the team has actually learned new skills. They trust each other more.
Right. They've bonded.
And they're equipped to solve the next 10 problems on their own without needing Manager B to micromanage them. Influence outlasts authority every single time because influence changes the people, not just the outcome.
That makes total sense. Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting for me.
Yeah.
If true leadership is about influence, like Manager B, how do you actually become that person?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because the Victory with Ash framework
Mm-hmm.
argues quite aggressively that leadership has to start from within before you could ever project it outward.
You cannot fake it.
Right, you can't just slap on a new management technique and call it a day.
You really can't. It is a foundational law of human behavior. People constantly want to influence others before they have learned to lead themselves.
Oh, all the time.
They want their employees or their kids or their spouse to change while fiercely refusing to change themselves. They demand respect without actually acting in a dependable way.
Which brings us right to the core of this philosophy. For those of you listening who might not be familiar, this framework, which is deeply rooted in Ashmafura's focus on faith, family, and integrity, it emphasizes radical personal responsibility.
It really does.
And it breaks this inner work down into 3 distinct phases: rise, reset, and refocus.
And we need to be very clear here that these aren't just corporate buzzwords.
Right. They're not just a poster on a wall.
Exactly. They represent a very specific sequence of internal psychological shifts. So rise is the foundational decision to just stop settling.
Oh.
It is facing your current challenges and choosing action over making excuses. You literally cannot change your trajectory until you decide to rise above the comfort of your current limitations.
Right. And once you make that choice, then you hit reset.
Yes. Resetting is about realigning your internal programming.
Like unlearning things.
Exactly that. It means actively identifying and removing the limiting beliefs and destructive habits that no longer serve you.
That sounds hard.
It's very hard. When we talk about resetting, we are really talking about eliminating cognitive dissonance. If your subconscious secretly believes you aren't worthy of leading or that you're an imposter,
Which so many people feel.
then any authority you're given will just cause you to self-sabotage. You cannot build a stable future while carrying the toxic habits that created your past problems.
That is so true. And then finally, you hit refocus, which, according to the source, is directing your energy toward what actually matters and ruthlessly eliminating modern distractions.
Because where your attention goes, your results follow.
Okay, but I have to stop you there for a second.
Sure.
Because I always assumed people failed to grow just because they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like they just haven't read the right book yet, or they haven't found the right life hack.
The magic bullet.
Yeah. Isn't this ultimately just an information problem?
If we connect this to the bigger picture the source paints, information overload is actually part of the problem.
Wait, really?
Think about it. We have more information at our fingertips right now than any generation in human history. If information were the answer, we would all be billionaire enlightened leaders with six-pack abs.
Okay, fair point.
Growth is rarely an information problem. It is an implementation problem.
An implementation problem. Wow. It's almost like downloading a massive software update on your phone, but you never actually hit restart.
That is a brilliant analogy.
Yes, the code is just sitting there on your hard drive,
Yeah.
taking up space, but your operating system is still running the old buggy crashing version of you.
Exactly. Information alone rarely creates transformation. Transformation only happens when learning becomes physical action.
Right.
And that action has to be repeated until it becomes a habit. But psychologically, we love hoarding information because reading a book gives us a quick dopamine hit.
It makes us feel like we did something.
It makes us feel productive without ever requiring us to take the risk of actually doing something and potentially failing.
Oh, that stings a little, but it's true.
This is why the Victory with Ash material places such a massive emphasis on environment, on mentorship, and accountability. You need external forces to help you bridge that brutal gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it.
Which perfectly explains why every single New Year's resolution we make is dead and buried by the second week of February.
Exactly.
We had the information, we just didn't have the implementation system.
Precisely. And to crystallize how this all comes together, there is this fascinating leadership equation in the material.
Okay, let's go through that.
It maps it out perfectly. It says self-leadership plus vision plus character plus communication plus service plus consistent action equals positive leadership.
And the very first variable in that entire string is self-leadership.
It has to be. The entire equation rests on it. If you cannot manage your own time, if you can't regulate your own emotional outbursts, if you can't keep the small commitments you make to yourself,
The small stuff matters.
it matters most. If you fail there, it becomes mathematically impossible to lead anyone else effectively. Leadership isn't about figuring out how to force people to follow you.
Right.
It's about doing the internal work to become someone who is actually worth following.
Okay, so let's say you're doing that inner work. You're waking up early, you're rising, resetting, refocusing. You're managing your emotions.
You're on the right track.
But how do you translate that internal discipline into leading others in the real world? Like if I'm a mid-level manager or even just a parent, how do I bridge the gap between private discipline and public influence?
Well, the source breaks this down into 7 distinct principles of positive leadership, and it starts at the foundation of character, which translates outward into trust.
Okay, how so?
The material makes it clear that your words and your actions have to consistently match. If you tell your team that work-life balance is important, but then you are emailing them at 11 p.m. on a Saturday and expecting a reply,
Oh, the worst.
your character is out of alignment, they will not trust you.
And the practical application they give for building that trust is really fascinating to me. It's admitting mistakes,
Yes.
which feels so counterintuitive. I mean, in a traditional corporate environment, leaders hide their mistakes because they are terrified of looking weak.
They don't want to lose their authority.
Right. But psychologically, admitting a mistake does the exact opposite, doesn't it?
It really does. When a leader stands up and says, hey, I messed up this projection, here is how I'm going to fix it, instead of blaming the intern.
Right, throwing someone under the bus.
Exactly. When they own it, it creates a massive surge of psychological safety. The entire team suddenly learns that it's actually safe to take calculated risks here.
And that accountability is actually valued, not punished.
It transforms the culture overnight.
That is so powerful. Okay, so once you have that foundation of trust, you have character.
Yeah.
How do you get everyone moving in the same direction? Because having a trusting team that doesn't know what they're doing isn't very helpful either.
No, it's not. And that's where the next principles come in. It requires the alignment of vision and communication.
Telling people where we're going.
Yes, but more importantly, telling them why the journey matters. You can't just hand out tasks like a vending machine.
Right.
You have to connect their daily grind to a bigger picture. But here is the critical mechanism of communication that most people completely miss. You have to listen before you decide.
Listen before deciding. That is huge. Because the stereotype of the great leader is the person who walks into the room, immediately diagnoses the problem, and just issues brilliant commands.
And that stereotype is honestly toxic. When you actually listen to your team's input before making a final decision, you are neurologically validating them.
Even if you don't use their idea.
Especially then. Even if you ultimately choose a different path, a team that feels genuinely heard will execute your final decision with so much more confidence and loyalty than a team that was just dictated to.
Which brings us to the impact side of this. Once you have trust, you have alignment, you're communicating. How do you actually wield influence?
Well, it's principle 6, influence without manipulation.
Because again, in the real world, the people who often get ahead are the manipulators, right?
The office politician.
Yeah. The people who know how to play the game, use leverage, and apply pressure.
Sure, manipulation might win a sprint, but it always loses the marathon. The framework is very specific about this. Think about the mechanics of persuasion versus manipulation.
Okay.
Manipulation uses fear, deception, or artificial pressure to force a choice. It removes autonomy entirely.
It's forcing someone's hand.
Exactly. But positive influence is entirely different. It helps people make better decisions by explaining the actual value of an idea and respecting their freedom to choose.
You persuade by aligning with their values, not by exploiting their fears.
Well said. Yes.
And that ties perfectly into the serving principle. Serving before you seek to be served.
It flips the script entirely.
It really does. It goes from, what can my team do to make me look good, to What obstacles can I remove today to help my team succeed?
Removing roadblocks is a leader's real job.
It makes me think of modern leadership not as, collecting followers like some kind of social media influencer, but more like it's almost like planting trees.
Oh, I like that.
You aren't trying to build an army of dependents. You're trying to create a forest of independent thinkers who don't actually need you anymore.
That is a perfect analogy. And that's actually the final principle. Develop other leaders. The highest level of leadership is absolutely not creating followers who depend on you for every single answer.
Right.
It is developing people who become capable leaders themselves.
Which means sometimes you have to intentionally let them struggle.
Right.
Right? If you're a parent or a manager, it is so tempting to just swoop in and fix the problem because it's faster.
It's way faster. But when you always solve a team member's problem for them, you are actively robbing them of their development.
You're hurting them in the long run.
You're creating a dependency loop. Instead, a true leader asks the right questions. Things like, what do you think our next step should be? Or how would you handle this constraint?
So you teach the skill, you delegate the authority, you let them wrestle with it.
And then you celebrate their growth.
Okay, I want to pivot here because the Victory with Ash framework doesn't just leave us with this high-level theory.
No, it is highly practical.
Right. It actually demands immediate practice. And it makes it abundantly clear this applies everywhere. This is not just for CEOs and glass boardrooms.
Not at all.
Identifying a problem in your neighborhood and organizing a solution instead of just complaining on an app. That's leadership.
What is that?
Guiding your family through a crisis with patience rather than panic. That is leadership.
Yes. Leadership is a behavior. It's not a venue. And to force that behavior, the material lays out a 7-day leadership challenge.
Let's get into that.
It takes these massive concepts and just distills them into daily microscopic actions.
And I really want to run through how this actually looks in practice for you listening, because it is designed to be implemented right now, today.
You don't need a budget for this.
No. So you start by just proving you can lead yourself. Day 1 is simply keeping one important commitment to yourself. Just one. If you say you're going to work out, you do it.
Because if you can't keep a promise to yourself, you won't keep it to others.
Exactly.
Then day 2 targets communication. And the challenge is deceptively hard. You have to give someone your complete undivided attention without interrupting them.
Oh man, day 2. I'm going to have to physically duct tape my mouth shut at Thanksgiving for that one.
It's so hard.
It is physically painful to just sit there while my brother-in-law explains his theories on the universe and not jump in to correct him.
But it's painful because it requires temporarily killing your ego.
Ouch. Yeah.
You are prioritizing their need to be heard over your need to be right. That alone could completely revolutionize most family dinners and corporate meetings.
Absolutely. Okay, so from there, the week builds. Day 3, you practice encouraging someone by recognizing their effort.
Very simple.
Day 4, you actively serve someone by helping them solve a meaningful problem.
And then day 5, there's taking responsibility. Owning up to one mistake or unfinished commitment openly.
Which goes right back to building that psychological safety we talked about earlier.
Exactly. And then the week rounds out on day 6 by having you communicate a clear vision to someone about why a shared goal matters.
And day 7.
Day 7 is developing someone by teaching them a practical skill you possess. It is a complete cycle of transformation from self to others.
It's shockingly simple, but so incredibly difficult because it requires you to be permanently on.
It requires deep intention.
It really does. And that connects right back to the ultimate goal of this entire community. The goal isn't just to help you hit a sales target or, get a promotion.
Achievement is fine, but it's not the end goal.
Right. The ultimate goal is total transformation. A complete rewiring of your mindset, your habits, your skills, and ultimately the impact you leave on the world.
Because success only becomes truly meaningful when it bleeds over and contributes positively to the lives of the people around you.
It shifts your entire identity. You go from being a follower of circumstances to a responsible individual.
You transition from relying on control to relying on trust.
You stop issuing instructions and you start setting an example.
Yes. You move from personal success to positive impact.
Wow. So to recap our journey today on this deep dive, leadership is absolutely not a title you wait around for someone in HR to hand to you.
Stop waiting.
It is a daily, sometimes exhausting choice. You step into leadership the moment you take responsibility.
Exactly.
You lead When you keep your small commitments, when you absorb the blame for your team, when you empower someone else to grow, and when you consistently choose service over your own ego.
And to make this deeply personal for you, the listener, there are some powerful reflection questions in this material that you need to answer honestly.
Lay them on us.
Ask yourself right now, today, are you currently leading yourself effectively?
That's the foundation.
Do your private actions actually match the high standards that you publicly expect from the people around you? Do the people in your life genuinely trust you? How do you respond to disagreement? And ultimately, are you helping the people around you become stronger and more independent, or are you just keeping them dependent on you?
Those are heavy questions. They're great questions, but they are really heavy
They require real honesty.
because they completely strip away your ability to play the victim. They force you to look in the mirror instead of just pointing out the window at everyone else's flaws.
That's where the real work begins.
And I want to leave you with one final thought-provoking idea to mull over as you go about your day today. We started this conversation talking about the expectation of visibility, right? That society thinks leadership should be as obvious as a title on a door or a uniform.
Right.
But if true leadership is really just a collection of silent internal commitments we keep to ourselves and the quiet everyday ways we empower and serve the people around us, imagine what would happen to the fabric of our society if millions of everyday people suddenly started viewing themselves as leaders, even without a title.
It would change everything.
The word wouldn't change from the top down. We wouldn't have to wait for some savior in a corner office. The world would shift from the inside out.
Absolutely.
Think about that the next time you're tempted to interrupt someone, or the next time you're tempted to blame a coworker for a mistake. The title doesn't make you a leader. The choice does.